Hello everyone, Ace here, and today let's talk about Battlefield 2042 yet again, because EA and DICE have released a statement showing what the future holds for the game. And with this in mind, allow me to read it to you all in full, which says, quote, "You've waited patiently to hear from us on what we're going to address, the issues with Battlefield 2042 that you have told us about, and the direction you can expect to see us take in the months ahead. We're taking action on multiple fronts to address feedback and implement extensive fixes to the game, key features that are important to you, and getting team play where it needs to be. After the release of an update in early March which will include improvements to scoreboards, subsequent updates will prioritize work that will include voice communication and player profile, a tighter squad loop including a refined ping system, feedback-based improvements to gunplay, improved reward loop, expanded tools, modes, and tweaks to player experience gains in Battlefield Portal. With a focus on improving these core elements of the game, we've made the big decision to move Season 1 to early summer. When Season 1 arrives in early summer, it will mark the start of a year where we will deliver 4 seasons, 4 new specialists, and new locations, along with more new content. For all of you who purchased the Year 1 Pass as part of the Gold and Ultimate Editions, we know this content is coming later than expected. So we're giving you all an exclusive bundle containing a specialist skin, weapon and vehicle skins, a melee weapon, and player card, all to be delivered in the next update. We're also planning on improved player feedback process with all of you. As we begin working on new changes, including map design, we'll be sharing our efforts with you, knowing that your feedback on the progress is critical. We are committed to and focused on ensuring Battlefield 2042 lives up to our ambitions and your expectations. It's a task we're dedicated to accomplishing. And for reference, DICE did indeed include pictures of the various skins that they hope will be enough to satiate the fans, who are understandably less than pleased with receiving a broken game back in mid-November that is still not fixed. And with this all in mind, allow me to now move on to my thoughts regarding this particular statement. First of all, let's start by looking at the very end statement again, where it says that, and I quote, "We are committed to and focused on ensuring Battlefield 2042 lives up to our ambitions and your expectations. It's a task we're dedicated to accomplishing." This is something that you would say for a game that is still being developed and not yet released. The fact that EA and DICE have to say this now, months after the launch, shows just how broken Battlefield 2042 truly is. This final sentence is EA and DICE making it sound as if the game hasn't even released yet. That said, let's now move on to that update that they spoke about coming in early March, which is going to start including features that fans have been asking for, such as, for example, having scoreboards. Which I have to ask if we're really supposed to be hyped that Battlefield 2042 is finally going to be getting scoreboards over a month away. After all, we're only talking about a feature that has been a staple of multiplayer since the very beginning of online multiplayer. And if you're one of those people that like the teamwork associated with voice communication, well, I hope you have a Discord server, or at the very least the patience to wait even longer than March, because DICE and EA very clearly state that that will only be coming in, quote, subsequent updates. Now, credit where credit is due, I will say that the decision to focus on fixing the game is the right decision. Unfortunately, the fact that it will take yet another month before we see even such a basic feature as a scoreboard, and even longer for another basic feature such as voice communication, is yet another sign of just how underdeveloped the game is right now. In addition to all of this, of course, let's talk about the big news that has gotten people the most annoyed. The fact that the first additions of new content to the game won't even be until the summer. And that's only assuming that EA and DICE aren't forced to delay that even further. And to be honest, at this point, I think EA and DICE should have just simply delayed the game for a full year so that people could have had a game that actually worked on launch. But unfortunately, that particular boat has sailed. Getting back to the particular topic at hand, though, I will ultimately say that the decision to prioritize actually fixing the game is still the right one, but at the same time, it is perfectly understandable why people are so upset. This is a problem that EA and DICE ultimately created expected when they chose to launch the game in the state that it was first in, and is still in today. And speaking of bad decisions made by EA and DICE, allow me to once again bring up the problem regarding the specialists. Which, to be fair, we were promised new specialists for the seasons. So the companies are forced to deliver on that, even though the fans do not want the specialist system at all, and instead want to go back to the class-based system. Having said all that though, if EA and DICE were truly committed to listening to fan feedback, then the smart decision would have been to say that while we were going to be getting new specialists, the specialist system itself would be ripped out of the bulk of the game, and only really left in that one mode that nobody ever plays. Or at least that is what I would say if people were actually still playing Battlefield 2042. But of course, the actual player base continues to dwindle, having at this point even dipped below 5,000 players in a 24-hour peak on Steam. And of course, EA and DICE hope that the player base actually lasts until that next update in March. Unfortunately for them, I do not see this happening. I do not believe that Battlefield 2042 is going to be able to recover at this point. The game was simply released in too broken a state to sustain a player base, and it is now simply taking far too long for the fixes to be properly implemented. This is on top of another major issue, that being the specialist system, which has thoroughly gutted the game in its own right, and is itself a problem that EA and DICE continue to ignore, despite the fan feedback telling them that the specialists were a terrible idea and should be removed from the bulk of the game. And also, mind you, despite the claims made by EA and DICE that they are listening to the feedback of the fans. Clearly, something needs to be done by the fans to drive the point home of just how unpopular and hated Battlefield 2042 is right now. And thankfully, I have an idea. There happens to be a parody game of Battlefield 2042 known as Clownfield 2042 that only costs about $1. And it just so happens to actually be rising in popularity recently, and seems to be getting some pretty positive reviews, with people saying that it's better than the game that it is parodying right now. With this in mind, I've decided to buy this particular game, and I'm going to begin playing it myself. And my idea is to suggest that perhaps you do as well. Because we're getting to the point right now where if enough people start playing Clownfield 2042, it might actually manage to overtake the player base numbers of Battlefield 2042. And the idea of a parody indie game that costs $1 managing to overtake the game that it is parodying is exactly the sort of slap in the face that EA and DICE deserve to receive from the fandom. So I say let's do it. It's only $1, and I will happily spend that $1 just to send the message to EA and DICE what people think of them. And if this little plan works, and Clownfield 2042 ends up with a larger player base than Battlefield 2042, or at the very least on Steam specifically, then I assure you it would become news in its own right. News that would further demonstrate just how much of a laughingstock not only Battlefield 2042 is, but also EA and DICE are as well. So again, I say let's go ahead and give it a shot. Just $1 to send a massive middle finger to both EA and DICE, which is a price well worth the admission, I believe. And that is something on which I hope you'll agree as well. Of course, I will continue to endeavor to keep my ear to the ground and report on further developments regarding Battlefield 2042. As to be honest, given the fact that Battlefield has been my favorite franchise of all time, the fact that 2042 has been such a disaster that it might kill off the franchise altogether has made this situation somewhat personal for me. And at this point, as a long-time Battlefield fan, I am now left wondering whether or not the series dying off would be the lesser evil at this point, rather than see it be further butchered by the incompetence on display by both DICE and Electronic Arts. But who knows, maybe a miracle is possible. Maybe the next Battlefield game will be the redemption of the franchise, if we get another Battlefield game. But in any case, this has been Ace. Hope to see you guys again soon. Take care. Ace out.